Direct from historic downtown Orange, California, it's time for the Bob Gurr Show. From undersea adventures to highways in the sky, he's done it all. And now, here's your host, the man, the myth, the Disney legend, Bob Gurr.
Hi kids, this time on the Bob Gurr Show, we have a fantastic person that we're going to have a good conversation with. It may turn out to be a bit of an interrogation. He may figure out what I'm up to. But definitely on this show, we definitely do things different, and it's always a surprise. So I'd like to introduce you to Bret Iwan. Everybody knows who Bret Iwan is. But we are going to find out the Bret Iwan that Bret Iwan doesn't even know.
Oh.
So this is going to be very interesting.
I'm excited for this.
Now, here's the interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting people that you run across. And what really tickles me, Pink, is when you have people that they're good at everything.
Oh.
Let me tell you, folks, this Bret, he's an outdoors man. He's a horseman. He rides horses expertly. He's a steam railroad engineer. He's an artist, much beyond drawing Mickey Mouse. Everybody knows him for Mickey Mouse. He's a shop craftsman of the highest order. He's got a shop that would drop dead if you could see the beautiful tools he's got in his shop. He also runs a sideline, a business, vintage restoration, modern aesthetics, and good design with the Pasadena type of bungalow design. He also likes classic cars, classic trucks, and he combines the love of cars with the National Park Service, for whom he even makes posters, and he sells posters. And he's also, when it comes time for Christmas, he's the most fabulous Christmas party creator I have ever seen. You would die if you got invited to his backyard. So that'll give you a little bit of hint about what you already know about Bret Iwan, favorite friend of mine. So now I'm going to get into the things that I'm kind of interested in.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that interests me most often, and I know it other people too, you see successful people, and sometimes the person is so successful, either one line of work or several lines of work, and they have a great ease with which they do that, where other people might struggle.
Sure.
I'm interested in tracking all the way back into the seeds of how a person winds up developing an MO in their life that allows them to do this success appearing to be at great ease.
Appearing to be. That's key. That's key. Appearing to be.
Appearing to be, yeah. Sorry. So my line of questions is going to be basically, let's go back and whatever you can remember. It doesn't have to be complete visions or complete thoughts or complete experiences, but somewhere between 3 years old and 5 years old.
Okay.
Sometimes a person will, when they think back a little bit, they remember a little snippet of this, a little snippet of that, and those are what I call the seeds. This would be the seeds of what we would say is the nature. In other words, the DNA that you might have. And that's modified by the nature over time. So this is kind of a race between nature and nurture. All right. So within that range, see if you can think of a couple of key points that you could see in your mind that led you to building a path that allowed this kind of success. I'm really interested in that.
That's such a good question, Bob. You're forcing me to really think.
Yeah,
I told you we could deep dive, and you're deep diving. Yeah, I think so. There's really three things that come to mind with relation to that. The first being, my mom moved over from Ireland when she was 2 or 3. So my grandparents were immigrants, and they came over and started their own printing business in Pasadena. So I grew up hanging out in a print shop in Pasadena. And why I thought of that is I was surrounded by family who was running small businesses. So from a very young age, I saw kind of a work ethic that was, being responsible for the life they wanted to lead. The second part is, which I've referenced a lot, is my fascination with Walt Disney. In particular, when it comes to my Disney fandom, I was always really interested in Walt and his story. I was somewhat, you might say I was nerdy when I was younger, and when other kids were excited to go into the playground and play kickball or baseball or whatever, I hightailed it to the library, and I would help the librarian sort and put books back on the shelves, and I would do that because when I was done helping her, I then got to go pull out my favorite little Walt Disney picture book. It was a picture book about his story and where he came from, and I was more fascinated with who he was and what it took to get to the place of creating Mickey Mouse and Disneyland. As much as I was a fan of those things, of Mickey and Disney and Disneyland and all that, I really found it interesting that he was somebody who essentially came from nothing, and through several trial and errors, and sometimes more trial, than success, came to this place to create this magical thing that we all know and love. And then I think the third thing I think about from that age bracket, that age range, is my parents. I had parents who were just very encouraging, and each creative in their own right. My mom was always decorating and crafting. My dad is an avid model railroader. The both of them, I witnessed, again, the theme of hard work. They were always working, and my dad worked as an appliance repairman when I was younger. Not a job he was particularly enthralled with. It was a job to pay the bills. But what I saw was when he wasn't doing that, he'd come home and he would be immersed in his model trains and creating these imaginative little worlds. And it was really something that we, as the kid, I'm one of 4 boys. So us as the boys would do with Dad, right? We'd play with the model trains. And it was kind of this exemplified hard work, and then you get to make sure you have time for the fun stuff. The things that stir your imagination and keep you creative. So yeah, I think those 3 things, the family business, the Walt legacy, and then my parents' encouragement really kind of set the theming for, I think, what the rest of my life is.
What ages, what you've just described, at about what ages you recall that might have been?
Well, it's funny, just this weekend I was recounting one of my earliest full memories. I have snapshots. My brother was born when I was 3 years old, and I can remember going to the hospital for that. But the first real memory I have is probably around 4.5. So I would say the age of from 4 to 7 is that bracket that I constantly reference when I think of my childhood.
Okay, that's a very good description of that age. I want you to go a little bit further back, because what you have described is seeds that have germinated already. Because the minute you mentioned following Walt Disney, I'm not sure you did that at 3 years old.
Probably not.
Right. But being awareness of the work ethic with your parents, and being around, like railroad, things of that nature. Before that, this is the area that I think is always very important to learn about people. Before they really understand things more thoroughly around them, there's these little snippets of little hints of something. Sometimes I'll be at a public event, and parents will come up and they'll bring their child, or whatever age, and they'll always say, "My child wants to be an Imagineer. What can you offer the child?" And now we get into a line of questions that can get good or get very, very awkward. So after a moment or two, I'll suddenly look at the child and I say, "What turned you on when you were 5 years old?" And it's only going to be 2 different answers. One was look at the parents and say, "What did he say?" And the other one was the kid will start and, "Oh my God, let me tell you all about this." And then I look at the parents and the mother will go, "Oh, let me tell you about this." So somewhere in that 5-year span, there's something that goes just beyond one of the questions that in that area is, what is your first awareness of being an alive person?
Ooh.
This is really one of those very first seeds. There's some little snippet, usually it's visual, a little snippet of something that didn't make sense then, and you seldom refer to it now. But everybody's got these little snippets here and there.
Gosh.
Those are the ones. For example, the first experiences that would tell you what you're scared of or what is comforting. Something that the content of it is, you really want to focus on it. Let's say in my case, it's like at an extremely early age, cars and airplanes. These are not your parents or other things of a strong modern nature. Cars, airplanes. Those are two little early snippets that kept getting developed as they went along. So I'm really looking for any of those little seeds that you can remember. These are the little tiny images that are the very first thing that you can barely remember and don't know what it meant.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because you're right, they are little snippets that don't make much sense. And I'll reference my brother's birth again, because that truly is a snippet.
That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I remember the hospital, and the only reason I know it's my brother's birthday is he was born December 13th. So I remember a hospital corridor with Christmas decorations on each door. I don't remember meeting him. I don't remember him as a baby. I don't remember that. But I do remember a sensation of my dad taking me to the hospital to meet somebody new. So I knew it was a big moment.
See, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Those are the little images.
Yeah.
They're in there, but they never thread together.
They don't thread together. I do like, and there's also this sensation of a fascination with color, and I don't know if it was necessarily crayons or paints, but there was something very early on about like a limited color palette and applying that to things, to doing something. But again, I don't really have many details regarding that one.
No, you don't have details. These are little, as they say, little snippets of things. I keep talking. I think you're starting to come into some of these things.
Well, and then the other one, so this is a bit later on, and it's a little bit more of an evolved memory, but I do have, it's funny, maybe this gives some insight into my personality that I don't always share, but it's kindergarten.
This is what we want to do now.
So, kindergarten, very early on kindergarten. Two memories from that. Well, I guess it was kind of preschool, pre-K actually, because it was an interview I had to do before going to kindergarten. And I remember sitting at a table and a woman was showing me flashcards. And it was, I don't know what was on the flashcards, but it was something to gauge my level of intellect, I guess, at that point. And what I remember from that experience is I didn't like her judging me. I didn't like the process of of someone determining who I was and where I fit in. And then fast forward a little bit into that kindergarten year, a very specific memory of playtime. We had these great wooden trains that was like maybe 2 or 3 cars that connected to each other. And during recess, we would take them and play on this carpeted area that was the designated playtime area. Well, I was playing trains, and my train didn't stay on the carpeted area. It wanted to traverse different areas, and as such, I wanted to take the train onto the linoleum tile that went around the snack area. And when I did that, I was very harshly told, no, the trains stay, the toys stay on the play area. And I can remember looking up at her and thinking, you have no idea, lady. Do not tell me where this train can go.
These are the exact snippets that I'm looking at. For example, some people will just chew along through life and just cooperate with everybody.
Yeah.
There's other people that are in a situation and it's, no, I'm going to do it my way. And the minute you let a teacher know, I'm going to do it my way, now there's trouble.
Yeah.
But this is the seed that we can call, the confident creativeness, that the world doesn't have to be lived in as you see it. The world can be how you want to make it.
Yeah.
And that can just lead into these paths.
Sure.
See, we've already gone through some of the creative stuff that you do, which is kind of a broad range. But the fact that these little snippets that you just told me lead right to that. Keep going. Maybe there's a couple of more that you can think of. Because, for example, the first one was you didn't like authority.
Yes. Extremely accurate.
All right. There, you marked that one down. Okay,
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
that one. Then you mark down the fact that the train is not to stay on her tracks, they go on my tracks.
Yes.
All right. So keep digging. I think you're doing really good.
Oh my gosh. Let's see, what else is in there? There's I don't, again, there's no specific memory, but
No.
there was I grew up with always having an awareness of not wanting to break the rules, which now that you're calling out my aversion to authority, it's curious that I was also somebody who very much wanted to be acknowledged for following the rules. I wanted it to be known that I was a good student. I wanted to make people proud of me. But the undercurrent always was, don't tell me how to do that.
This is absolutely perfect because you just showed me you have the yin and yang understanding of that to be a good student, you must do this, but to be an outstanding student, you'd like to do that. Now what you're doing, you're telling me about those first little snippets that you didn't know that you were using that began to design the different paths. Now, by the time you get to the 6, 7, and 8, those paths are pretty well established.
Yeah.
And that was an MO in each one of those different directions. But I thought this was a very important thing. How you pointed that out was, I want to be good, but I want to be me. And you understood that quite early.
I guess I've never realized that I did, but
Yeah.
but it's actually very poignant, especially in some of the things I just encountered last week. Those are themes that continually, just last week I was in a situation that I was being made to feel and being told that I had done something incorrectly, and it shuts me down. It shut me down completely. But on the other side of that, once I've gone through those emotions, I come out and I say, wait a second, no, I'll show you how I'm going to fix this, and I'll show you how you're probably wrong in making me feel that way. And it's a cyclical thing that rears its head several times in my life, for sure.
Well, what you just told me, this recent experience ties so much with those early seeds.
Absolutely.
That you are competent in any kind of a situation where you might be rebuked or praised. But you can go back and forth through those and not sit there and pout or cry or start to build a grudge. You get the situation resolved in the case at that moment, and we carry on. These are extremely strong characteristics. I'm in my mind. I'm starting to put what you first started to tell me. Then you went back into some of those early ones. You see how you can build yourself for all our listeners.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. So can you give me a few more examples of those really little early ones?
Early ones. I don't know. You tell me if I'm going too far in that timeline. These things are popping up now.
No,
I remember.
Keith, you're on a roll.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. This is very early on. This is very early in in computer technology, right? So this is, I couldn't tell you what year. Probably 87. Right. I'm probably around 5 years old again, right. 5 or 6, and we had a computer lab. And for whatever reason, I can't remember the circumstances, I was chosen to be one of the lab monitors. And so it was literally a child sitting in a room with computers in charge of making sure that those 4 computers were being used correctly. And I remember there was a tremendous sense of pride that came from that, especially if an adult came into the room and needed help. How do you insert this floppy disk into the reader, you know?
Ooh.
So there was I think that was pretty formative to be given some, I guess that's authority I was given. I was assigned to a role that elevated me.
Let me ask this. I can see that picture. You're 5 years old, and an adult, one of the big people, gives you the authority to make choices and do things and control things.
Oh. And I may have been older than 5. Maybe I was 6 or 7. But
so, how did that really make you feel at that moment?
Oh, I mean, prideful sounds like a negative connotation, but yeah, very proud. I was proud. It was validating. I think that was the biggest thing, is validation.
Did you get a hint that it's easy and natural to be in control?
I enjoyed feeling as though I was in control. I don't know if I'd say it was easy and natural, or maybe it felt as though it should be easy and natural to be in control, but there was also a necessity to prove myself to get there. So it felt like I should be in that place of control, but there was constantly things I had to work through, maybe whether that be an adult or a situation or a person to be granted that permission.
But this is something that was, it's a pretty, what you tell me, it's pretty strong memory, but I can see that this would lead to the fact that was only the first of that kind of situation. Would that have made it a little bit easier as you went along?
It set an expectation for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And it was a role in a situation that I enjoyed and felt good being a part of. So I think, it kind of started a craving for more of that.
You're really getting to some very good points, you see, because the craving for when to do that is like one more step to this MO path that leads to how you operate.
Yeah.
Let's hop into a little bit different thing here. Obviously, you're an artist. Seemed like you could draw anything at any kind of ease in any kind of medium. And just happen to be able to draw Mickey Mouse.
Just a little character.
Little side things. Yes. Okay. When do you think that you remembered that the idea that you talked about colors, small number of colors, crayons or whatever, that you begin to see that you could pick up an instrument and go to a piece of paper and start doing a piece of the world your way? When did that show up?
What's really interesting is I don't have specific memories about creating, I can't remember a specific piece I was creating or a drawing or whatever, but I have to imagine I was participating in that process very early on. One of the earliest memories I do have of actually drawing was with my dad. And it just so happened to be that we were drawing off of Disney cartoons. What we would do is we'd watch the classic shorts together.
Okay.
And then he would pause the VHS and we would sit down and each draw the character that we were looking at. And, and I always felt like my dad was better than me, but I always reference that memory because it is one of the first I can recollect where I was aware of having an intent to create something specifically. I wasn't just making marks or putting color down. It wasn't a coloring book that I was filling in. I was actually creating. Like you said, my goal was to create what I was looking at on paper. And that sticks. That's a very strong memory for me. I remember doing that. That was one of my favorite activities to do.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah. And again, that sense of pride came with that, because when I felt as though my drawing looked like what I was looking at, that I saw on screen, then there was a sense of pride, like, hey, I can do that too.